If this weren't the biggest case of "we told you so," I don't know what is. I mean, he came into office promising a socialist paradise, free buses, taxing the rich, frozen rents. 6 months later, that socialist paradise is looking more like a sinking Titanic. And the very people that Mamdani promised to protect, working families, renters, the middle class, they're not waiting around. They're out of there. They're leaving. And it gets even worse than that. So bad, the federal government actually had to step in and shut this moron Mamdani down. Stick them to the very end of this video, because what's unfolding in New York City right now is just the beginning of what these New Yorkers inadvertently voted for, and they ain't seen nothing yet. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness, the Mamdani madness. We're breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are now technically 7 months into Marxist Mamdani's socialist experiment in the largest city in our nation. And the numbers are in. And they are utterly catastrophic. New York City has lost a net 114,000 residents over the course of the last year, taking their incomes, their businesses, and their tax dollars with them. New York State's 5-year domestic migration loss now exceeds 1 million people. That's comparable to California. And here's the part Mamdani really doesn't want you to hear. The Citizens Budget Commission found that the bottom 40% income group is leaving New York faster than the top 40%. So these aren't the billionaires leaving. These are working families that he actually promised to fight for. Well, they didn't wait for socialism to save them. They ran from it. And where did they go? Well, I'm sure you can guess, right? Where'd they go? They went to Florida, more than 125,000 people taking $14 billion in income with them. They went to Texas. They went to Tennessee. And what do all those states have in common? They are all, well, what do you know? They're red states. They're all places where Trump and the Republicans keep taxes low, and government knows its job. It's to serve, not to punish. In terms of age groups, we're finding that it's actually millennials who are leaving the city more than any other generation. And interestingly, Latinos are leaving at faster rates than whites or blacks. Meanwhile, the IRS is showing that New York has lost, get this, New York State has lost $111 billion in taxable income over the past decade, and $11 billion this year alone. The share of American millionaires living in New York has dropped 31%, from 12% down to 8.7% of the national total. And the Citizens Budget Commission calculated that if that old millionaire rate had been maintained, New York would have had an additional $13 billion in taxes. $13 billion gone. Because New York became a place where people wanted to leave instead of come into. And then on tax day, April 15th, creepy Mamdani delivered a masterstroke of exactly what not to do if you're trying to enable your city to flourish. He walked to 220 Central Park South, stood outside billionaire Ken Griffin's $200 million penthouse, and he shot this utterly creepy video where he celebrated taxing the rich. I mean, the guy was literally giddy over taxing American citizens. And so Griffin basically said, F you, Mamdani. And he announced that his wealth management fund, Apollo Global Management, one of the largest in the world, was scaling back their New York City jobs. They announced instead that they were opening a second headquarters in either Florida or Texas. Either way, those are jobs that aren't going to be in New York City, and you can thank their weird, perpetually smiling socialist mayor for it. And that's the price of socialism. It's the price that we see over and over again. It's not theory. It's not a textbook. It's jobs. Jobs disappearing. Investment capital evaporating. The future literally running to other states where they're invited rather than punished. And then we had the rent freeze. On June 25th, the Rent Guidelines Board voted 7-1, and keep in mind, 6 of those 7 board members were appointed by Mamdani, so this is just a Politburo. It's just theater. The results have already been predetermined, but they voted to freeze rents on roughly 1 million stabilized apartments, and it was the first 2-year freeze in the board's entire history since 1969. Now, Mamdani, of course, celebrated, but what he didn't tell New Yorkers was that already 57,000 of those rent-stabilized apartments were sitting vacant. That's up a record 9,000 since last year. And the reason for that is simple. It's because landlords would rather leave them empty than lose money renovating units they can never recoup costs on. You see, the problem with rent freezes is that they don't account for what doesn't freeze. You know, things like property taxes, insurance, maintenance costs, utilities. All those costs keep going up. So rather than lose money in all of the upkeep and renovations, landlords are just letting those apartments sit empty by the tens of thousands. So what does that do? What does that do to a city of millions of people when you have tens of thousands of apartments sitting vacant permanently, as it were? What does it do? Well, of course, it artificially limits the supply, all the while it increases the demand. And what happens when you have low supply but high demand? Costs go up, which is exactly what we're seeing in the private sector. Rents today in New York City are at an all-time historic high, under the supposed socialist savior who promised to rescue New Yorkers from rising rents and costs of living. You literally cannot make this kind of economic imbecility up. When you have 1/2 of the housing market now frozen in place, all the rest of the demand has to be accommodated by just the market rate units, which always will cause the rents to skyrocket. Mamdani froze the rent, created 57,000 new vacant apartments, and pushed market rate rents higher. And he had the gall to call that a victory. But nothing, absolutely nothing compares to what happened just this past week. This is going to absolutely blow you away. But first, gang, what if I told you there's a little-known arbitrage play hiding inside a $30 billion market, and regular people with zero background in finance or tech are quietly generating $5,000, $10,000, even $20,000 a month from it, using nothing but a laptop? I know it sounds almost too good to be true, but here's what's actually going on. There's a significant and very real pricing gap in the used book market. The same book can be worth dramatically different amounts depending on where it's listed. And the people who've learned how to spot and exploit that price gap are building serious, sustainable income. And what makes this unlike anything else that I've come across is you never actually handle a single book. There's no physical inventory sitting in your garage, no trips to the post office, no physical logistics whatsoever. The whole thing runs from your browser. You identify the opportunity, you make a few clicks, and the fulfillment side is handled entirely by someone else. And I want to be clear, this isn't, a side hustle that just pads your grocery budget. This is a real business model that people are running full time right now. Many of them haven't walked away from jobs they didn't love in the first place. That's why I'm personally hosting a free training on Monday, July 20th, where I'm going to walk you through exactly how this system works, start to finish. No filler, no theory, just the actual mechanics of how to find the opportunities and what to do with them. I'm going deep on this, and I'm genuinely excited to show you what I found. Click the link below or type bkprofit.com/Turley into your browser, or scan the QR code on your screen to reserve your free spot right now. Again, you do not want to miss this one. Click on that link below right now. On July 7th, the same day, the U.S. and Iranian forces were exchanging strikes and CENTCOM was launching new waves of attacks. A senior official in Mamdani's administration was quietly scheduling a meeting with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. The official is Anna Maria Arkilla, the commissioner of Mamdani's Office for International Affairs. She had booked a sit-down with Amir Saeed Iravani, Iran's permanent representative to the UN. The meeting was calendared, the invites had been sent, and the State Department found out. And they were pissed. They shut it down immediately. A mayor does not get to circumvent the State Department, especially with a country with which we're currently at war. So Mamdani recognized right away the hot water he was in, and he did what he does best. He deflected. He actually said he didn't know anything about the meeting at all. He had no idea about it. He's claiming he literally had no idea his own international affairs commissioner was setting up a meeting with the Iranian regime at the exact moment the United States was bombing Iranian military targets. Now, obviously, both scenarios are deeply troubling. Either he knew and he's lying again, or he didn't know, which means his own administration felt entirely comfortable reaching out to one of America's most dangerous adversaries without telling the mayor, without telling the State Department, without anyone in City Hall thinking it was remotely unusual. And this wasn't even the first time. The State Department had already been forced to scrap a separate planned meeting between Mamdani and Colombia's Marxist leader, Gustavo Petro, who is thankfully being replaced by the populist right candidate Abelardo de la Espriella, who just defeated Petro's Marxist successor. So here's the bottom line in all of this. New York City is losing 114,000 residents a year. It's staring down a $12.6 billion deficit. We didn't even get to that. Yes, you heard that right. $12.6 billion with a B. Its rent freeze is creating 57,000 vacant apartments. All the while, it's causing rent to skyrocket for the rest of New Yorkers. Its tax the rich strategy is watching billionaires build towers in Miami rather than in Manhattan. And its mayor's own administration was secretly trying to sit down with the Iranian regime during active U.S.-Iran combat operations, and it had to be stopped by the State Department. Now, Moody's has already shifted New York City's financial outlook to negative. Cornell projects the state will lose another 1 million residents in the next few years. And remember, all those projections were made before Mamdani implemented a single policy. Moving trucks don't care about ideology. IRS filings don't watch TikTok. And the 114,000 people who left New York last year didn't leave because of an imaginary problem. They left because of a very real one. His name is Zoran Mamdani. And unfortunately, at least for the next few years, things in New York are only going to go from bad to worse.